Only a few stones actually hit me, and obviously they don't hurt. This coat has been through a war, possibly two. Pebbles are nothing. It's built for grenades. So Nida says, not only do I detect fact and a bit of humour in here, but I was wondering whether this is a metaphor for being a feminist. The small obstacles are something we blow away. We've got bigger fish to fry.
So that's a quote from How to Be a Woman, and it's the opening chapter where I'm describing the worst birthday anyone's ever had. It was my 13th birthday, and I was walking across some wastelands, and some boys started shouting at me, and then they started throwing stones at me. And I felt like turning around to them and saying, you know, I'm already oppressed enough simply by being a woman. You don't need to throw stones at me as well.
Yes.
Society is throwing enough stones at me as it is. So yeah, so no, it is very much a metaphor. But, you know, but within that metaphor there, cunningly, and I'm making this up as I go along because I haven't thought about it, feminism is the coat that you're wearing. You know, in that thing I was wearing a huge army coat of my dad's that had been through several wars. And that's what feminism is. It's the coat that will protect you. It has been through several wars. However many problems there may be being a woman or a girl now, compared to the problems that we had 100 years ago, 150 years ago, you know, we are definitely, there's no better time in history to be a woman than now. We're not getting burnt at the stake anymore. Hair products have improved immeasurably, so frizzy hair need not be a problem. You know, we have Benedict Cumberbatch's face. You know, things are definitely getting better.
Things are improving.
Yes.
For sure. No, I think that's so true. I think feminism and the feminist movement and finding a community of women through feminism and all of these things have sort of like, it feels like have been creating this force field around me, which has been sort of insulating me from all sorts of cold weather sexism and patriarchy. So I totally relate.
Well, it's that saying, isn't it? Kind of like standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yes.
And I say I'm standing on the shoulders of aunts.
Yes.
Because that's who they are. All these women that came before that have done these things, all the little laws that they brought in, you know, all the marches that they went on have incrementally made my life better. You would not be sitting there and I would not be sitting here if it wasn't for probably 20 women who went out there and changed things. But that's the beautiful thing, that's, you know, one person can change things for millions of people. One person can alter the future, and everything that I write, the idea of writing my manifesto was everyone, I genuinely believe everyone has one idea, however tiny, that could change the world. And we need all those little ideas. That's the only way the world changes, is by everybody who has that idea making sure that we have a society that is structured so that if you have a great idea, it can be heard by the right people and can be put into action. That's the idea of democracy.
I love the letter that you wrote to your daughter at the end of Manifesto, and it actually reminded me of I'm rereading 1984 at the moment because I did a film called The Circle, which shares a lot of the same themes, and it talks about in this book how for the first time in human history we actually have the potential, we have the technology, we have the scientific advances, you know, we have the knowledge for the first time to feed the world, to possibly create peace, to actually achieve all of these things. But for the first time in human history, we don't believe that it's possible, that humanity will allow us to do that. We don't believe in the innate goodness of humans to achieve this anymore. There's this kind of disillusionment which has followed the Enlightenment. There's this lack of hope that we can actually get this done anymore. And it's so ironic and tragic that it really would be the first moment we would actually be able to do it. And there's been all these times in history when we were writing books about utopias and we were imagining all of these wonderful societies and whatever else, and now what we do is we make movies about dystopias and about the world ending and apocalypse and, you know, everything just crumbling around us. And I thought that was really interesting, and I loved that Manifesto was just full of hope, and just the idea that this is absolutely possible. You don't need to watch the news every night. You know, you can have a diet of hope and belief and faith in human beings.
Well, totally. Well, the future is a propaganda war. You know,
Yeah.
kind of like, you know, we are choosing whether we're going to be pessimistic or optimistic about the future. And the way that the news media is set up at the moment, and the tone that social media has, these two incredibly powerful places where we have all our conversations,
Yeah.
and where we go, what's the world like today? Well, I'll look at the news and I'll go on social media. That's what the world is now.
Yeah.
And the tone of both those places is incredibly pessimistic. It's only showing us problems. It's only showing us things when they've tipped over and it seems like they can't be solved anymore.
Yeah.
And the people's reaction to that is necessarily one of being completely overwhelmed and just going, well, we're pumped then, this is
Yeah.
it. But that's where you realise that, like, you know, on a day-to-day basis, one of the greatest things that you can do to the continuation of our species and making the world a better place is to be optimistic.
Yeah.
Is to not believe in that. Because,
Yeah.
you know, if we all thought that everything was going to get better, then things would get better.
Yeah.
But, you know, if at the point where you just become, oh no, it's just too exhausting, I can't do anything about
It's
it,
not going to make a difference.
that is where we lose the war. So there's a brilliant lyric by the band The Divine Comedy that fate doesn't hang on a wrong or right choice. Fate just depends on the tone of your voice. And that is so key, because, you know, if you make mistakes in your life, you know,
Yeah.
the decisions that you make won't ruin your life, but if your tone all the way through is of unhappiness or anger, or if you're an unpleasant person,
Yeah.
that will dictate your life.
Totally.
And it's the same with our species. We can make all these mistakes, but if our general tone is one of, we're together in this, we're going to make things better,
Yeah.
then that is what will happen. But this is where culture is so key, and this is, you know, the thing that I enjoy most about my writing, and why I think it's amazing you're doing what you're doing, because for too long these kind of conversations have only happened in politics or in
Yeah.
academia, and, you know, not many people will pay attention to those things. You only come to those things late. You will only
Yeah.
come to academia when you're in your teens or in your 20s. You know, you probably won't
Yeah.
start engaging with politics until that time as well. But as a child, when you're growing up, what you think the world is and what your possibilities are is stories.
Yeah.
It's the films you watch, it's the TV you watch, it's the things that you see in magazines. And that's why making sure that you have as many different stories as possible, and as many different people represented in these things, are key. Like, one of the big examples that I give in the books is when I was